I have no idea what to expect from the Real Recovery event. There's going to be other men. There's going to be probably all different levels of fly fishing. There's going to be people with different experiences and probably different types and levels of cancer. So how that all comes together is kind of the exciting part of this process, because I don't know what's going to happen and what kind of stories we're going to see.
I had a good friend with melanoma who called me up knowing I was a neurologist and says, "Dick, I have brain metastases. What should I do?" He lived down in Texas, and we got him set up to go to get his medical treatment down close to home. And he called me back and said, well, he'd had his treatment and he wasn't out of the woods, but he wanted me to know about Real Recovery. And I said, what's Real Recovery? He said, you got to go to a Real Recovery retreat. I went to Real Recovery and it really changed my life. He told me it's a support group for men with cancer. And I said, Warren, I take care of sick people all the week long. I said, I don't want to go away for the weekend and hear a bunch of guys whine. He said, Dick, you don't get it.
Basically what Real Recovery is, if you just did sort of the simple definition, is like it's an organization that takes men who have experienced cancer on 3-day fly fishing excursions and teaches them how to fly fish. But in addition to that, it facilitates group discussions on men's experience with cancer and going through cancer, and their struggles and their trials and what they've learned from cancer and how it's changed them going forward. That's what it does, and it ends up doing much more than you expect.
When they get to these retreats and they have the opportunity to speak with other fellas who are in the throes of cancer therapy or what have you, it opens up dialogue that they never thought that they could ever experience at a level that they never thought they could get to. It's a weird deal, man, that these guys just allow themselves to be vulnerable with other guys. It's an amazing circumstance.
My name is Gene, and the first time I went fishing that I can remember was with my grandpa. I just remember him fishing all the time. And it was a lot of fun. I mean, he could catch fish when nobody else could, and I couldn't, so. But he let me reel some in that he had caught, so that was a pretty special time.
I remember walking along with my dad spinner fishing, and all of a sudden I went down in a hole and he kept walking, and I remember him reaching over and picking me up by the shoulder, and we just kept going, and it was great.
My earliest recollection of fishing is with my grandfather on the Snake River outside of Weiser, and he used to take me over there. I was probably 5 or 6 years old, and we would sit on the bank, and my grandfather would cut steps into the bank, and he would make sure he sat on this old milk crate, and he would have a couple of rods out there, and he would always hook these catfish and hand the rod over to me, and I would stand as a little boy and just try to crank these catfish in, and they seemed like 10, 20-pound fish to me. And my grandfather would just stand back behind me and laugh and just enjoy it. And I realized that half the time during those hot summers I was just drinking grape soda and kind of playing around and not paying attention. And one day I looked up and I saw that my grandfather was there just looking at the fishing poles and just waiting to hook a fish so he could give me the rod. And I realized I was sitting in his shadow, and he would, damp all the sweat off his face, and I realized he was kind of suffering in the heat, but I was in the cool shade of his shadow along with his little white poodle dog. And it was the first time I realized that I knew what love was at that moment too, that his sacrifice was just so that I could enjoy that. And then he got no more enjoyment out of fishing than watching me reel in those fish.
The metaphor of trout fishing or fly fishing and their cancer experience is simply this. Speaking from the trout's standpoint, it's a beautiful day. You're in a beautiful place. as the trout feeding indiscriminately, back and forth, and in moving water and oxygen and life. And then all of a sudden, man, you decide to eat this bug, and it, cancer. You're in the battle of your life, man. Back and forth and up and down and trying to throw that fly. And the harder you fight, the worse it gets, the sicker you get. And then ultimately you're placed into a net. Hook comes out, put back in the creek, released. Therapy, life.
In the beginning, I wasn't really looking forward to the conversations. I knew I had to say a little bit about my story, but maybe this is just sort of a man thing. You're not comfortable, like, well, this is me and this is where I struggle in front of a bunch of, and essentially, strangers. But as somebody sort of breaks the ice, you start getting connected with the guys, and the more that you sort of loosen up and just start being real about it. My name is Reese, and I was diagnosed about a year ago, September 15th, with melanoma.
My name is Gene. I've got prostate cancer. I'm about in the middle of my radiation treatment.
I had a message on my answering machine that they got the results back, and I had cancer. It says, you have cancer. Never forget those words. I was diagnosed almost a year ago with 4-stage colon rectal cancer. It spread to my liver. Doctor told me that he didn't think treatment would do anything, gave me 2 months.
Took about 35 days of radiation. I'm sorry, I'm not too good about talking about it.
May I interject one thing?
Do you mind my
No, please do. Your tears are welcome here. They're welcome here. We honor that.
Being there and seeing men open up to one another, strangers, open up to one another about some of their challenges, some of their struggles, their successes. It was incredible to see the sharing that took place in that room. The sharing, the caring, it was pretty outstanding, quite emotional.
Yeah, I expected, obviously, to go fly fish some waters that I'd never been before and experience some great fishing. But part of the greater part of that experience was meeting other guys and just hearing their stories and hearing how cancer has sort of changed them and their perspective on life and what was really important.
As soon as you said what the topic was going to be, I thought of a book that I've given to both of my daughters. It's called Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, and it's all small stuff. And when you've been told you got cancer, it's all small stuff after that.
The very first part was that utter feeling of helplessness and defeat and not being able to figure your way out and realizing, crap, I'm gonna die, and just going through all that self-thought, all that bullshit. Then I went through all the procedures and stuff, and somewhere along the line I recognized how much love other people were showing me and how much people really cared about me.
I think cancer has made me a more compassionate person. I'm a lot more concerned about other people, especially my family. I'm trying to spend more time with my grandchildren, just enjoy life.
How many grandchildren?
6, and there's 7, and another one's on the way. So.
I had this little experience going into church one day. An elderly lady, I opened the door for her. I thought it was an honor to do it. And she said, "You're looking good." And the thought come to my head, do cancer patients look bad or what? I says, a lot of people have told me that. especially the women.
Oh.
And I says, even some young girls told me I was looking good. She poked me on the chest like that, and she says, don't let that go to your head.
The second time that I was told I had cancer was harder for me, because after 6 years, you think, hey, it is lit, it's over with. Well, it didn't work out that way. And I'm just trying to be nice to my wife.
No matter how bad a day you had or what's been going on in your life, when you get in the stream and you put that fly on your line, it's just a situation where you just think that's all you're thinking about.
It's healing. It's a chance to just be outdoors, watching the water and waiting for a fish and experiencing that anticipation. And then when you hook a fish, it's that feel in your wrist and the way the fish takes off and watching it jump and strategize how to land it. You couldn't possibly think of anything else. It's such a good escape. Almost everybody says, wow, when I was out there, I didn't think about cancer one time. I was just out there and so focused on what my buddy was saying, or so focused on watching a bug on the water, watching a fish, that I didn't think about life other than that moment right there. And it's such a therapeutic and healing experience.
It just opens up your eyes to, hey, life is pretty damn good at times, you know? There is a tomorrow. There is things that we can still do. There's life to live.
They share their stories, which makes me, as the facilitator, check, you know, how can I incorporate what that man said into my life? So I far and away go away from these retreats nourished by their commentary. It's remarkable how these guys, within a couple of days, a lot of them have the weight of the world lifted off their shoulders.
Tell you how fun some roller coaster is, but unless you actually get on the roller coaster, I can't really explain the emotions or the feelings. I can only just tell you about it. And that's the same with a real recovery retreat. You can't really know it until you experience it.